Hi folks, welcome to the Restoration Couple. Today is all about getting the utility finished or near enough finished, and to do that we've got to install all of our doors and some other trim and other bits and bobs and some lighting, so stick around and I'll show you how we get on. Now this final bit of trim is to basically carry the lighting and also link those two wall cabinets together. We'll come back to that design later, but for now we need to move on to the spraying. So we're using the little Graco airless handheld sprayer again. Great bit of kit, expensive bit of kit, but it's really coming into its own on all these sort of cabinet jobs and the doors and trim. And it takes the paint straight out the tin like you see. No need to thin it down like was the issue with the old budget HVLP spray I had. With that all geared up, I've undercoated everything already, and the final bit of prep and filling and sanding has been done. So it's on to getting these sprayed. Now when it comes to the doors, I was spraying them all lying flat. I attempted to try kind of supporting them upright like this. This is the only one and only door I did that way. It proved to be a little bit risky in the wind, but also didn't really help anything along the way. So I've gone back to using the 4 screws that I had sticking out of the sawhorse to support it. Now while I didn't mind the undercoats and even this first coat of colour drying outside, certainly the final finish coats I wanted to dry indoors away from flies, but also I found that you almost need it to dry a little bit slower than you think. You try and spray outside in the sunlight and the wind and it dries super quick, but actually it dries before it can lay flat. I found that it kind of needs a few minutes after you've sprayed it to kind of flatten out a little bit, and you end up with a really nice, perfectly smooth finish. When you spray it outside and it leaves that slight textured look, if it dries too quick it just stays like that. So I stuck with that method for all the doors, no problems at all. The only issue I had is this unit here that you can see was a little bit too big to be taking in and out of the workshop, and I decided to let it dry outside. No flies, that was fine, but there was one slightly bizarre issue, but we'll come back to that later on in the video. Like us, you're probably kind of stuck at home trying to get work done, looking after family and friends, but also there's this opportunity to kind of get some of these some loose ends as far as the house goes. One of those that I've been working on recently, as you saw in the recent series, is the utility, and these are the first doors that we made. These are the traditional shaker style doors, and I've spent the last couple of days getting them sprayed and painted, and I'm really pleased with how they've come out. The doors are dry, but they're not drilled for the hinges yet. Probably should have done that before painting. Anyway, first job I want to do is to get this bulkhead that I've built. It's in the other kitchen at the moment, but we're going to get that fitted and replace this temporary light fixing with 3 downlighters in there. So I'm going to do that wiring now. Should really do it in daylight so I can work, but hopefully with this light I can turn off all the lighting and get that done safely, and then get Joe out to give me a hand lifting it into place. Right, before we can lift this up into place, there's a little bit of messing around I need to do with the wiring, but I also need to put a batten, like I've done on the walls here, on the cabinets here, well along the wall there, just so that we've got something to fix up into. It's a pretty rigid boxed in section, it's all made from 18mm MDF, so it's pretty weighty, and I just want to make sure it's not going to sag or anything over time. with these sides here, originally intended to build a face frame on these cabinets and have a side panel, but I kind of forgot about that when I was making up the doors, and by then it was too late. So I actually ended up just sanding the side of these melamine sort of standard cabinets, and then painted those to match. So really, when the door closes onto there, it should pretty much tie in, and bearing in mind that it's a utility area, it should be sufficient. Up here I've now got my line that I can just get this piece up there and just fire a few long screws right through. Now behind here there's nothing but plasterboard, thin layer of insulation, and then our big timber beam. So I know I've got a nice solid fixing into there, and there's no electrics. I think I trust that to take my weight. Oh, hold on. Something's wrong. Oh, scratch mine. It does scratch. Oh, hang on. I forgot the cable. Hang on. I might be able to fish it. I'll be able to fish it.
Yeah. There's a little bit of paint blemish here, is that okay?
Oh, I'm gonna have a trouble. It's good.
Oh, okay.
I know, it's just annoying. It's where the filler was dried differently. I love it when a plan goes right. That just snubbed right in. And go up a little bit on that corner, but I haven't screwed all of these battens in yet. And then this cupboard here is going to come across a little bit. But let's get the wiring in. See if we can get the lighting done tonight. There is a bit of trim to go on the front here, which I'm going to have to spray separately, and then I'll probably use some Mitre Bond, just stick it on. Annoyingly, where the edge of the MDF was, I filled the end of the end grain of the MDF, smoothed it out really well. Then I sanded it, got it absolutely smooth. I mean, to touch it feels fine, but when I sprayed it, it dried slightly differently. So I think what happened is it just dried much quicker on the MDF than it did where the filler was, which would make sense. So I think this is perfect under here. Not going to touch it, but up here I might end up just foam rolling just this section here. That coving at the top is perfect, but this bit, just so it all blends in, might just be that light that's picking it out. Before I flick the switches on, I'm going to leave them loose, and then anything that is a problem we can sort out before we push them up. Success! Let's feed these up, and then, don't know, I'll just crack on and get the doors hung. It is 11 o'clock at night, but hey. Now the impatient DIYer in me came out, and sure enough I carried on into the early hours. Anyway, so I'll be revisiting this in the next video as far as the process I'm going to match up existing cupboards and cabinets, laying out, using the jig and getting all these hinges fitted. I filmed that in more detail at a more sensible hour with daylight, so you can hold on for that. But this is how we were looking before the coffee wore out. tonight I'm going to crack on in the morning and get the two 600 cabinet doors down the bottom, and then those two pull-out larder units. There's a little bit more fiddling down there because there's some kind of unique bits. Not sure I'm that happy with how this has turned out. The colour's great. The idea of this and the lighting is great, but I really should have just made face frames, and this bit of pelmet or cornice or whatever we're calling it needs to be further out from the doors. I'm sure, you know, for a utility it's passable. This then needs an extra section because it was over 2.5 or 2.4 meters, so I've already cut a scarf joint on that and on a separate piece which is already painted. It just needs to be cut, slotted in, filled, sanded, and then we'll just touch up that bit and hopefully get away with it. So as a little preliminary insight into the next video, this is just the final coat that I'm putting on the backs of the cabinet doors that I've already hung. So I should have put this in the beginning of the video, but it's getting too late to re-edit this now. But these are the little small doors and some trim for the lower section, so that all of that stuff is ready for the final part of the install to get the lower run of cabinets finished. So that'll be the next video. Thank you for watching this one. Any questions, stick them down below. I will try and include any tools and bits and bobs I used in the description so you can find those for yourselves. But that's it. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.